First, I want to introduce the other members of this kitchen table. Xavier Jong, from Bouwfonds, investor in student housing. And Han Dommers, Head of Education Promotion NUFIC, who promised me to play the role of Jan Mulder on this, so hang like this, and say very contrary things nowadays. So I caught you on a discrepancy in your story. So on one side you had the bad news that you see virtual university growing very fast, promising. And at the same time, your whole story is about the necessity to have social meetings, to be together, and that's one of the main drivers for international students to go to a specific place. Or did I understand you wrong? And that's
well, in the sense that I mentioned those both trends, yes. In the sense that it's a discrepancy, I don't think so.
Okay.
Or I don't. At least I don't hope so. So I hope.
But
that
you know, you're the specialist here, so you should know. Is it the clicks or the bricks?
I hope. I think, and I see for now, but that's difficult to predict 10 years in the future.
We talk 2020, so you better predict it.
I see for now that real mobility has real value, is growing, and will remain to grow. The same counts for traditional education, by the way, where you have a teacher that you can look into the eye, can stand next to you. And
so I think one of the main issues of today is, if you predict a new generation, 7.6 million students, and the number came by before, are hopping around the world, looking for better places, but at the same time, I think it's so important to value the fact that they are in a specific location. Because that's where you create an ecosystem of smart people, innovative people who can drive an economy, a Dutch economy. So what is it? Are they going for specific places where they find the quality of life that they're looking for? Or are they kangaroos hopping around, 3-minute relationships and then up to the next?
I think the truth is in the middle, really. I mean, it's a lame answer.
Very CDA.
But yeah, that's what I think it is.
Okay. Is place important for you?
Yes, I think that fundamentally internet is less of a threat to student housing than it is to shopping or than it is to office working. Because if you study somewhere, you want to have a language experience, you want to have a cultural experience, you want to have a social experience, and all these things you cannot really get fundamentally through that internet channel. So I think it's a package of knowledge that I do the same thing, I learn from distance. It's a package of knowledge that I like that.
What's your course?
Philosophy.
Philosophy, okay.
It's about.
So, where do you invest, Bouwfonds? Where do you invest in these products?
We invested so far in Holland in one asset, which is outside my fund. We invested in my fund in France.
In France?
And in Germany. And so we only hit the top 10 once.
A little bit more specific, where in Germany, where in France?
We invested in Germany in a very old university city, which is called Marburg.
Marburg, yeah.
We invested in Stuttgart and in Karlsruhe.
Yeah.
And in France we invested twice in Toulouse and once in Ivry, which is a suburb of Paris.
I don't hear these fancy names, Paris,
yes,
Oxford, Cambridge, not interesting?
Well, Oxford and Cambridge, let's leave aside Oxford and Cambridge, because those are very undesigning, unfunky kind of student houses that I know at least. It's very, but it's a very typical market. No, but I guess yes, and I think the fundamental difference with some of the speakers that I've spoken to before and we is that most of the market today seem to be focusing on what I would call arrival assets. These kind of arrival assets here. You come from somewhere, you spend a year, and then you go somewhere else. I think it's a fantastic concept. It's a bit more a hotel kind of concept. I've seen some other concepts where you also attract tourists. There was an example early on for Barcelona, all these fun assets.
Yeah.
You have education and fun.
The one with the pool on the roof.
And the pool on the roof and the party. And usually
That's what I missed during my study.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Me too, but you had the women you were looking for. So looking for swimming
You're
pools
right,
and
you're
women. But
Choices.
yeah, no, and I guess the point is that what we are interested in is a bit more the affordable, clean, safe student housing, which is not funky.
Mhm.
And I would like to invest in the middle part of the market. And I would like to invest in those markets where the housing market is very tough.
And your clients are local clients.
And my clients are local and international clients.
Okay.
So there is a market for students that like to travel and just cannot afford or are not attracted by these other kinds of concepts. I think it's a big part of the market. And it's a market that we feel more comfortable with than these kind of concepts, which are very interesting.
Okay.
But you need to have a lot of extra knowledge that we currently would not have to be able to.
Keep it simple.
We would keep it a bit more simple and affordable.
So what's the contribution of Nuffic in attracting foreign students to Holland and making sure that all these houses get filled?
Well, Nuffic is the Netherlands Organization for International Cooperation in Higher Education, and maybe you can compare it with the British Council. The UK has Campus France in France and the DAD in Germany. And Nuffic is considered one of the big 4 players in Europe. But saying that, we are relatively small compared to the other ones. But maybe everybody should look, if possible, maybe if you have the opportunity to visit the student fair, to have a look at it, and then you will be amazed how international this kind of work is. Higher education, internationalization of higher education is a worldwide affair. Sometimes people think, okay, this only happens in the Netherlands. No, it happens everywhere. If you go to student fair, you see thousands of Chinese students in China, or in Indonesia, in Jakarta, or in Latin America. Those countries are booming. Their economy needs smart people. But the level of higher education supply in those countries are not always on the same level as we can offer here. And that's why Edwin made clear, Europe has a lot to offer, and I think he's right. But it's also good for us. And there were a lot of questions also last year, pressured by left, very extreme right wing or left wing. What's the use of international students in the Netherlands? What's the economic benefit? And the State Secretary, Zijlstra of Education, made a wise remark and said, I don't care what the outcome is economically, we have to do it. It's good for us. But I will do it for you.
Was there a Wilders effect?
Yes, there was a lot of pressure on it. And well, we were not afraid about the outcome of the question. So the Netherlands Bureau of Economic Policy Analysis, the Centraal Planbureau, did a research, it did a survey, and delivered a report, and it says it's good for the Treasury if we have international students in the Netherlands. Almost all effects were positive. And it was stated it can...
What is our main benefit of having foreign students in this country?
Well, we didn't do it for economic reasons. That's more what the Australians, the British do. And
doesn't necessarily economic reasons. There could be other reasons. But what is
our main reason was higher education, the quality of international students in the classroom.
They contribute to the improvement of the quality of education.
Yes, and also Dutch students have at the same time already an international experience when they study at the Dutch university. And furthermore, they bring in other competence, other skills, different knowledge. Russian students ask different questions than Dutch students.
What do you predict if you look at 2020 and beyond? How much more international students do you expect will come to the Netherlands?
It depends very much on the supply of answers.
Yes.
Okay,
Nobody will talk to you in 10 years. So,
okay.
so
well,
just give us the
a
perspective.
Small country as Singapore has already 100,000 students.
Yeah.
So in the Netherlands is twice as big as Singapore regarding the population. So we could have 200,000 students.
Is accommodation
international students?
Is accommodation issue?
Yes.
Tell
but
me.
I must confess, that's why I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's not we use in promotion always the 4 P's, like the product, the study programs, the quality of the universities, the P, the price, the tuition fees, scholarships, and the P of place, but then we only talk about university facilities, about the laboratories, but we hardly talk about student accommodation. But we can only talk.
Today we talk about students.
Yes, that's why it's good to put it on the agenda and also in the promotion.
So-
but you can only promote it well, but you have to be fair. If it's not good, then you should be clear.
What is your ideal product?
Ideally,
And maybe also the ideal place for that product.
I think ideally would be if municipalities and universities, supported by the ministries.
That's not what I'm asking.
You know, that you're asking something concrete.
Very concrete.
I think the
Court in concrete. if
I think
necessary.
that- yes.
That's what we're looking for.
Yes, I think there would a wide range of student accommodation.
Yeah.
Maybe in the lower range,
Yeah.
that not so
His
expensive.
product.
Yes, and
Yeah.
also more an expensive range, because students coming from countries that are emerging, their parents have a lot of money in the future, more money, and they can afford better student accommodation.
And you need a place, you need a setting, a campus kind of environment.
Could be, that
Yeah.
would be great. But I think also we should be more professional in providing information. I read the Kansas report that the information is also not clear. The international students, they don't have a network before they come here, so I think NUFI can also provide some tools for that, for example, the Holland Alumni Network. And, but I think some universities do it better than others.
Mm.
Some cities do it better than others. And I think also on the level of city marketing and promotion, there could be a whole package of not only the
So-
study program, but also about the accommodation available to the international students that already has applied to a university.
So this guy comes by from an investor, Bouwfonds. What product can you offer that answers to his questions?
Well, I'm an investor, so I'm basically.
You don't sell.
Well, I hope I can sell them. I have a worry on the exit.
So this is your marketing trade.
Yeah, well, I think that if I would start with the Dutch market,
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to have an efficient student housing market if your residential market is in itself not efficient.
Yeah.
I think that is a complicated.
Our residential market is not efficient.
It's not a functioning residential, well-functioning
At
residential
this
market,
moment.
and that makes for the last 40, 50, 60 years. So
Oh, okay.
it's been, and that is difficult. I think these guys that suffer from in this building, if you look a bit at the business case that they had, without knowing all the details, I get there was a lot of, it shows that it's difficult. And one of the things that it shows, which is very important for me as an investor, is that I don't get why should I pay for 5% net yield in a city like Eindhoven
Delft.
or Delft, in a student housing in a B location. If I can buy.
That has
Sure.
a pool. I heard today security and safety is an issue. Is that not something you should provide?
Sure, but I provide financial security, safety, and sustainability. And so therefore, I need to watch very carefully what the pricing is of an asset in the market. And I just think that Germany and France is much better priced currently than what I've seen.
How much difference is that in percentages?
I think that we don't see a spread of somewhere between 75 and 125 basis points between the net yield we get here.
Which is
On
20%.
student housing and on residential. And I get that somewhere else. And that to me is a bit of a puzzle.
Okay. Your comments on that. Is he on the right track? And is there a product in the market here with higher quality, with more services?
That would be very difficult for me to comment on.
Okay.
I'm not up to speed on which projects are being offered in the Netherlands and what their yield is. But I do think he mentions a very.
Can I try something else on you then? Maybe,
Well, come on,
maybe
bring
that's
it on.
more. You're talking about the way the university are developing. Isn't part of his problem that we come from a very public organized structure to a more private organized structure? I mean, I was amazed by that Swedish increase in isn't that university going private?
Well, it depends on how you call it private, but it's certainly the money has to come more from private funds, which is the individual student in that case, which can be good or bad.
Well, then we can help him because
Yeah, well,
we're talking
certainly,
higher
I
numbers.
think-
I mean,
what-
if a product has been free for quite a long time, it's hard to make the next step up.
Completely true. I mean, one of the things we did when we started was making it clear to students what does an education program cost? What does a master program cost? And we would often surf the websites of Dutch universities and they would not list their tuition fee. And then you would talk to them and they would say, yes, but everybody knows the tuition fee in the Netherlands because it's the same for all universities, 1,700 euros. What are you talking about? Yes, okay, but somebody from India has no clue about the legal tuition fee for, and I think that's a thing there too. And so now already, if somebody comes from China to study in Leiden, they have to pay 80,000 euros of tuition fee per year. So
You can buy a whole village in China for that.
yeah, well, no. So often that is the almost the life saving of grandfathers from the father side and the grandfathers from the mother side. But if you have that type of budget, you know, then they're also willing to spend then 200 euros per month, or 300 euros, 400, 500 euros per month on a good, safe education. Sounds like a very reasonable investment, and it doesn't seem like that kind of thinking has very well arrived.
Make one pertinent prediction about what's going to happen in the next 10 years that you think will drive this development of facilities for universities.
Now, what I hope is apparently, for me as an outsider,
It could be a wish.
apparently for me as an outsider, there's a very big bottleneck somewhere around regulations apparently, which withhold the market mechanisms from taking place and fulfilling the demand. And I hope those will be.
I'm very happy that we're on safe terrain. Get rid of government. That's kind of what
Well, at least the regulation that blocks all of this.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you know what is worse, that you have
So what's
market priced accommodation or no accommodation.
So what's your question to the next Minister of Education in Holland?
How is it possible that there's still shortage on the student education market, and how can you allow such a very big industry, but relatively in the total size of the benefits of the education market, how can you allow that as a bottleneck for, well, at least 10 years since I'm around?
So 4 years to get rid of that.
4 years max.
Nice. What would your question be to the next Minister of Education in order to make sure that we get our fair share of the international education market?
Recommendations is also possible.
Yes, yes.
I think the industry.
But in a very forceful way, of course.
Forceful way.
Recommend-
There is
I want something tough.
something tough. There is already an action plan on student housing on the table, signed by Minister Donner.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the education minister knows about it. So
Is it-
talk
Is that
talk
to say
with each
something about
other.
Donner, or is it
No,
okay?
I've worked. I've been a civil servant for 17 years,
Okay.
and I know ministries they write documents very well.
Yeah.
They can make
Yeah.
legislation very well,
Yeah.
but are not so good in doing
Executing.
things. Yes.
So
But
what's
I
your
think all the
recommendation?
parties were involved in that action plan. Just skip the word plan.
And make it action.
Yes.
And
I
what's the
think
main
also
important action on the list?
monitoring.
What's your most important action on the list? Here sits the minister on this table. New Minister of Education.
For education,
Yes.
support the internationalization of higher education because it's good for our knowledge economy.
Spend money on it.
Yes, and I think also make clear what the roles of all the parties are. Just create a public framework, because somebody said also during this afternoon, that maybe this student accommodation is a niche,
Yeah.
because the housing market is so big.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not interesting enough for all the developers to invest in it.
Okay.
But that, I think then the government has to play a stimulating role, and that's the public task, because it says also in this I think it's a good document, it says higher education is the engine of the knowledge economy,
Yeah.
and the student housing is the battery of the engine.
Okay.
So if we don't have a battery, then we don't have international students.
And the car won't start.
The car won't start.
Okay.
But leave it also to private parties then to invest in that.
Okay. Your recommendation. Demand.
I think we suffer in Europe a bit from a lack of Europeans.
Okay.
And I think that shows also in the very low levels of students that go abroad and spend 1 year somewhere else. And if you are impressed by the number of 8 million that was shown on the OECD numbers, If you think that the three biggest countries in Europe for students have more than 6.5 million students, if every one of them, spent 1 year abroad within the EU, you would already have 20% more within that number. And
I guess, but I think it's a very interesting point. You're saying, forget about all the star students, don't forget the plain bread and butter the students
Yes,
that need a place as well, which are also moving around.
I think if you're now a Spanish student, the extra skills and knowledge you have by, for instance, studying in Germany now, in this economy, would be much better for the allocation of resources.
And much more uplifting and staying at home.
And much more uplifting than staying at home.
Yeah.
So I think we need more Europeans, and we need the assets that can accommodate those
Okay.
Europeans.
Are there any questions in the room that need to be answered before we come to the final part of this meeting? I understand that. I truly understand that. We're there. So let me all thank you, the three of you, and can I ask you to stand up and leave the table? And an applause.